All right. Welcome to another episode of Staying in Trouble. We finally this year have a guest with us. It's about time, Eric.
Am I your first guest?
For
of
this
2021.
year. Yes, the first
Holy
guest
cow.
of 2021.
So in the previous episode, Cynthia, we talked about why we slowed down, why Adam is recording from a trailer. And
my daughters live in this trailer right now, and you can tell all of their crap everywhere. If you could see the other side of this computer, it's nothing but their laundry. And so I'm glad you're only looking at this. Get it. Yeah. Yeah, you would get along with my daughters for sure.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how you're living in a tight space with how old are they?
Well, it's three girls living in here. My oldest is 20, and then the next one's 18. So they got their own space. And then there's a little 12-year-old girl. So my three daughters are occupied this trailer. This is the cleanest wall. Sure. This is the cleanest wall of the whole trailer.
Oh, man.
But anyways, man, we are so happy to have you on. Yeah. So are you still in California? You're still there? I
am.
All right.
Yep. I'm at Vandenberg. I have probably at least another 2-3 years here.
All right. You like it? Or do you want to get out like everyone else?
Pros and cons, yes. So pros are the weather, dry weather, but pretty consistent. We're getting back to the 70s next weekend, so I'm excited about that.
I'm so excited.
But cons is definitely COVID. They are one of the most strict states with COVID. They're like my gym, my off-base gym has been closed since COVID started, like over a year now. So
oh wow,
there's a lot of businesses that unfortunately didn't make it through COVID. I'm from Arizona originally, and it seems like a lot of Californians are moving there and Colorado. So it's crazy.
Yeah. Actually, you could add to the list as well, Cynthia. Tennessee and Texas are importing a lot of Californians, as well as obviously Nevada. It's an easy transition, and Arizona is an easy transition. So
because we're almost as screwed up as they are.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Tennessee and Texas are two of the three top imports of Californians. So,
is that why real estate's going up over there?
Oh, so bad.
Did I talk about real estate last time? It's the trailer. Yeah, no, real estate's going up everywhere due to. Have you ever played the game Monopoly?
I'm horrible at it. Horrible.
But yeah, so because that's the number one question. They're like, "Are we in a bubble? You know, what's real estate doing?" And I'm like, don't worry, interest rates has got to be up to 4%. The problem is people have a lot of money. You still have about 97% of the U.S. is employed, even with all the COVID restrictions. Mm-hmm. And so on average, and then you have low interest rates, and you have everyone is trying to put money into assets to hedge against inflation. So Inflation Nation is on the way. And so that's why
it just sounds like a lot of excuses for real estate agents to make a lot of money. That's what that sounds like to me.
Actually, so Adam, just legislation. There's a national lawsuit, and commissions have actually gone down quite substantially. And then May 1st, they'll go down even more. So,
wow, put me in my space.
Yeah.
Speaking of space, Cynthia is a lieutenant in the Space Force. Is that correct?
Yep.
And how is since our last episode, I wanted to find time to listen to that episode. I did not do it in this morning in the gym. So how has everything been going? How has been the transition? When you were there the last time we had you on, you were kind of new in it all. And then now it's been a while, at least almost a year.
Well, the branch was new. Like
the branch was brand new.
Yeah, it was like it was just penciled in, and now she's like
running
Captain
it all,
Marvel.
Right?
Yeah, she was like running the joint now. She's like Captain Marvel. So.
Oh, I think you honestly caught me you found me right as I was pretty new into it. I was only a month or two in the Space Force, so I mean I couldn't even really claim to own it, but just still in training. Space Force loves training, so right now I'm in job training. I been in for like a month and a half for my job training, like kind of classroom status. And then in a couple weeks, I actually go like on the ops floor and work with kind of like the systems that I'm going to be working with and getting like kind of on the job training, side saddling with somebody, working 24/7 operations. So schedule is going to be fun, I guess you could say. But I'm really excited to finally like get going with my job. So gonna be some exciting stuff.
Now, the most important question, and we were really hoping you had some inside information on this. When is Space Force Season 2 coming out on Netflix?
Man, I don't know.
We are waiting for that.
I know. You know what's crazy too? Like, I'm not talking anything on the Space Force personnel, but there's a lot of people that like they don't enjoy it, and I think it's funny.
Really?
You know, maybe maybe it's just because like they've been in. So I'm new to the space like career field, you know, in general, not only Space Force, but the space like career field of operations. So maybe they just don't have like a sense of humor because it's not accurate at all. There's like, you know, points in there where
it's a little bit accurate.
Yeah, there's, you know, here and there. But
I work
you know,
with a lot of Air Force people, and there's a lot of like, holy cow, that's like right on.
Yeah, humor wise, but you know, the like the actual like the monkey in space, you know, doing all the satellite, you know, with a wrench. Yeah. I don't know. They just don't find that funny, and like I'm like, you know, it's a bit of a stretch, but I still find it funny. Like anything with Steve Carell, I love. So no joke.
Well, tell them to try being a plumber. Everyone jokes on a plumber until their toilet's clogged, and I'm their best friend. So
I don't doubt it.
It comes with it.
Yeah, or a faucet sprung a leak, then you're a top friend as well. So
I'm Johnny on the spot, but till then. But anyways, that's a hilarious show. I had a lot of fun with it. I think it came out right at the right time. I think most Americans know it's just a spoof on it. It's just fun. You know, you got to have the moment to laugh and have a good time with it. And Steve Carell is just fantastic at it, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it definitely publicized us a little bit, but you know, sometimes I walk around in public or even like tell people that I'm Space Force and they're like, seriously? Like that's a thing? Like, because it happened during COVID, like nobody knows that like this, or like a lot of people don't know that the Space Force is a real thing, let alone what we do. But like, I like show them like, no, here's a picture of me in uniform, you know, like they don't even.
Oh yeah, no, Cynthia. So when we posted your first picture, I don't know if you saw the comments, but we had like over 100 comments. Oh no, the flag's on the wrong side. This is totally a spoof. Her name wouldn't be. It was off too much. It was off by 1/8 of an inch. I mean, the gig line comments were just spouting. I'm like, wow, are you guys in person? Are you at Cynthia's ceremony with the ruler or what? And I was like, man, too many Marines on this thread. So
oh yeah, I get that on social media all the time, and I don't know like kind of who shares like what photos, and it's hard to kind of keep up. But whenever I see people correcting me, I'm like, no, like according to like Space Force regs, like this is actually a thing, you know, and just the lack of knowledge is like it kind of, I feel like it's on our part to like, you know, teach people this. So that's kind of what I do. But
yeah,
you know,
well, so from our first episode, I love the fact that you had done a dissertation on space trash, and then I felt like leaving after that episode. I'm like, Adam's like, you and Cynthia are quite the nerds. I'm like, yeah, you know, when you can find enjoyment in talking about garbage, you know. I don't know if you saw some of the questions I sent to you, but it was surprising. So I have some friends in Air Force, and they're up and coming or interested in maybe going into the Air Force. And even they too were like, Space Force is for real. And I'm like, dude, you've graduated from college. Like these are college graduates that are either retained by the Air Force. Like I have a friend and he has a contract with the Air Force. And that's why like some of those questions I sent you were really specific in like, you know, how does the GI Bill relate to the Space Force? Like those are really specific questions, but none of that. Like you talk about education or people having opportunity for careers. When I talk to some people at Bigelow Aeronautics, they're like, Eric, you got to come down. There's actually tours that people can go in and see the space capsules. You obviously can't get close to them because of the environmental controls. And but you know, I was talking to someone in that corporation actually 2 nights ago, and just talking about how cool it was that people don't even know. And I felt like it's like, oh, that's just like the Space Force. People have no idea what's going on around them, and they have no idea how much of what you are going to do actually will end up protecting us in the future. I played the board game is Axis and Allies, but I'm trying to think of this video game that I played in college, and it had the Allies as they always had more. They had the higher technology, and the Soviets had kind of more muscle. And I kind of feel like that is actually kind of played out in real life over 2 decades, where, you know, yeah, we are always trying to develop a higher edge of technology, protect that technology. And a big part of that is Space Force. So do you want me to fire off some of the questions I sent you, and you got answers for them or what?
Yeah. I wrote some notes down. So let's
Great.
go for it.
So let's start with Space Force. Let's just say someone is like totally engrossed, says, man, I want to be, I'm sure you're a role model for many women. How does someone join Space Force? Do they have to be in the Air Force first and then switch over?
No, so there's 2 ways. So you can either transfer from any branch, or you can join, you know, right off the street. So I actually talked to one of my friends. He's an Air Force recruiter, and he said that now he's like trained up to be a Space Force recruiter as well. He said for like his squadron, he gets only like 400 billets for the entire year, which is incredibly small compared to the Air Force. But he was just pretty much saying that it's really competitive, and you do need a higher average ASVAB score. Like more specifically, he said a minimum of 70 in the electrical aptitude area on the ASVAB. However, like a higher average isn't necessary for like an overall ASVAB score, but he said it makes you look, you know, more competitive for the actual going into the Space Force.
For some of our listeners that may not know, can you explain the ASVAB test, or the score you were just talking about? Can you jump into that a little bit?
So I don't have the acronym down right now, but pretty much what it is like a test of like testing different, different types of criteria. So anything from like math to reading comprehension, to like electrical. So kind of, just like anything kind of like an electrician will know. I was surprised that I kind of did higher in that score, but I did work as a handyman with my dad a lot. So that kind of helped with like circuits and stuff like that. Mechanical. There's kind of like a different variety of testing, but that can be done with at your recruiter's office. Even like ROTC or high schools offer the type of tests, but you can practice it online. There's like practice tests to study for, but you can take it more than once. So if you don't like your scores, I think you have to wait like 60 days or something like that and take it again. But
does everyone get the same test? Like if you're coming off the street, you walk into a recruiter's office, hey, I'm interested in the Space Force. Is that like a basic test, or do you take one test and go?
I wouldn't call it, it's not a basic test, Adam. It's a baseline test.
Okay, that's what I mean.
And so you being a plumber, you should appreciate this, because what ASVAB stands for is Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery, which says, so like you as a plumber, you're like, hey, I don't know much, but I know plumbing. And so that's what helps direct the armed forces to say, hey, you have a higher aptitude for this. Maybe you should try this profession. Maybe you have a higher, and that's why having the different scores, like what Cynthia said, well, having a score about, electrical and, circuits and whatnot will obviously get you a better ASVAB score. Whereas I think a lot of people think the ASVAB is similar to like a SAT for the military. And really it's almost more like we on previous episodes we've talked about the differences between, hey, I want to go to college, I want to go to college, and then they find out, oh, I've got $100,000 debt, and it's, I've got a teacher's position that makes $55,000 a year, and they're like, I have no way to get out of debt. And it's like, maybe you should have been an electrician. And the electrician lives up the street with the big house and 2 razors. So and so that's what the ASVAB can kind of help you is ascertain as to what vocational skills, whether it be security, whether it be plumbing, electrical. And so
I just wanted to clarify it. Maybe some of our listeners are really thinking about it.
No, I think that's a valid question, because ASVAB gets thrown out there. And when you think about tests, like going into a test, you think ACT, SAT, and maybe it's like the military version. And really it's not. It's more vocational. Maybe it'd be wiser maybe to start. I know in like ROTC, which is ROTC, that they do some ASVAB training and testing. But were you in ROTC in high school, Cynthia?
No, but I was kind of involved with the youth leadership camp or youth leadership conference that had some ROTC students or JROTC students in high school. And that's kind of what exposed me to the military and why I kind of joined. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate? Like what happened? Like you were at leadership and you're like, oh,
I can talk about this. Yeah, I love this. So when I was going into my sophomore or junior year of high school, he's kind of like my godfather in a way, but a family friend. He's in the military of World Wars. It's like an organization with like older retired veterans, which I still have to oath into as an officer now. But they run this youth leadership conference every year. It's the Arizona Youth Leadership Conference. And it's about like 100 students of, JROTC, just regular students or even homeschool students. And we throw them all together. And it's a 5-week or a 5-day long program where it's pretty much like teaching patriotism through leadership. Like it's super nerdy. But we learn about like loving our country and like folding a flag and how to, take care of your flag, talk about like the Constitution, how you like, we go through like a court case and how that works, and just stuff that kind of like falls through the cracks in school about like our country. And but it's just amazing, like from day 1 to day 5, how people just of different backgrounds from all over Arizona come together and just grow into, just more comfortable and confident people. So that's kind of where I fell into that. I was just a regular student, came in, and that's kind of how I saw the first time, like the ROTC uniforms. And then ever since then, besides, I think 1 or 2 deployments and then COVID are the only years I've missed since then. So it was like, 13 years total. I keep coming back.
Oh, that's amazing.
I really love it. Yeah.
Well, some of the other questions, like I reached out to some friends when you're like, yeah, I'll definitely come back on. And I was like, hey, I really wanted to load the questions up, because when I've talked to people about our first episode, once again, their eyes get like really big. They're like, is that really a thing? And you're like, yeah, here's the announcement. Here's the YouTube link. It's a real thing. So like, what's the compensation like?
Same thing as Air Force.
Straight across the board.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Same exact pay grade. Even just the benefits, everything is the same exact as Air Force. It's kind of like how the Marines fall in the Navy. It's just, you have a different name tape, different leadership. We have a different organization now, of how we kind of structure our leadership, but yeah, pay is the same. There's officer enlisted there. The Space Force is saying that they don't want warrant officers. So that's not going to be a future thing, at least near future thing. But yeah, everything else is pretty much the same as the Air Force.
Nice. And what did you get your degree in?
Space studies.
So where is that even available? Yeah,
I know. So it is general. So space studies is only offered through American Military University, which is online, based out of like West Virginia. And then I think it's offered at University of North Dakota, but I started it in 2015, I believe, like just onesie twosie classes.
Nice.
And it was just from word of mouth because I didn't know, like, I was like, oh, that sounds like super cool. And so I can say with like my sleeve and my degree, like I was like on that space train before it became like a cool, hip thing. I don't know. But yeah, so the degree is everything from orbital mechanics to space weather, rocket fundamentals.
So it's like legit. It wasn't just like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Were you going to roll into a joke on it or something?
I mean, it's space studies. And so, I think the comprehension, now I feel like, oh man, do I know what space studies is? And but getting into weather and upper atmosphere and different conditions, I think most people look up to the stars, and we all get, you look at Star Trek and you're like, oh yeah, we just need to build a little dock out there and we'll, send ships off. And, and yeah, I watch a lot of the space shows, and, once we find that, light speed engine, then we're good to go. That's all we're missing. So,
well, one thing, Cynthia, that you'll know what I'm talking about after serving in the Air Force. Every time I do a job and they want to thank us, they give us a squadron coin. Has the Space Force come out with a bunch of coins yet?
Oh yeah. So I need to get my hands on them. Actually, right now they're kind of pricey because they're pretty new, and they're like they're the delta shape, so they're super cool. So a lot of them are like in that delta shape, but they're like averaging like $15-20 a pop.
Yeah, see that's how much ours go for. But sometimes they'll give them to us if we roll in, we do something special for them. They give us, but most of all the people that I work for, all their coins also dub as a bottle opener. Have you seen those type?
I haven't.
I wish I can bring them out. That I have a whole bucket of those.
Yeah, I definitely have seen those before. I just don't know if I've seen a Delta version of one of those. But if I find something,
not
cool.
A Delta. Like we got some that are some different shapes. We have one shape that is, I can't explain it. But anyways, they all work as bottle openers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Once I find one, I'll let you know.
See, that's the number one rule on when you build a base. You build a bar and then you build a base around it. Yeah. That's how it works.
That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much as space. I don't know. It's a different culture. It's a different breed of people.
If we get a base in space, there's going to be a bar. I'm sorry.
Oh gosh. Yes. Have you seen those memes? There's an astronaut that's like on the keyboard and like hanging out drinking on the space bar on the keyboard.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, space bar.
Yeah.
I get it.
I thought that's funny.
Ba-dum-bum.
Right. Yeah, well,
hey, Cynthia,
you're going to have to post any space coins you may get. I mean, I would love to see some of those. Those things are fun. It's a good collector item for sure.
Definitely. We'll do.
Hey, so in part of your basic training, so like we see lots of shows where, basic training for most other branches, you have a kind of Air Force is not known for basic training. They're not known for a rigorous PT training. What is the Space Force expecting? Like, can you be, at your keyboard for the last 10 years and roll into the Space Force or?
Oh man, yeah, the Air Force and the Chair Force. Yeah, that's definitely common. But so right now, the basic training for Space Force is going to still fall under the Air Force. I don't know if that's going to be changing also in the near future, just because it's. I think the Space Force said that they're looking at about having 16,000 people in the Space Force, and that includes civilian. And enlisted and officers. So it's very small compared to the Air Force. So I don't think like one of their top priorities right now is having their own basic training. So we will still have the Air Force's basic training. And as far as PT, I know they're kind of tweaking the Air Force's PT right now. And we're kind of just following everything that they do. Unless we one day choose to do something different, we definitely will. But so far, not big changes there yet.
Well, are there changes? Like who gets the tasers? And then like, for the Space Force, are they practicing at the laser tag facilities,
If like COVID didn't make us like be all shut down from each other, but that may be a fun PT. I might bring that up actually.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, that would be cool. What was one of the questions my friends had? They had well, speaking of combat, in all seriousness, is there a combat? Is there going to be combat involvement, or like what does that involve in Space Force? Like I don't even know how to. Like, are we going to just be shooting from satellites? Is that part of the Space Force? Like, what is that? I mean, what does that look like?
So that's a really good question. So there you can definitely deploy as space. Probably the lowest amount, or one of the lowest to amount of people actually deploying in that career field, but there's definitely units that support that. And I feel like the biggest hiccup for support is that even like our own sister branches have no idea how we can support them, and so we're pretty limited of who we can support because they don't know how we can support. So the biggest thing is like informing our people of how we can support, and going overseas and facilitating the deployed troops, while they're doing operations, and working with the satellites, making sure that they have, communications, and that they're, safe at all times during that. As far as deploying into space, higher leadership of Space Force vaguely mentioned that we will be, deploying in orbit. I have no idea what that looks like, but it sounds really cool, and I'm really excited about it.
If you deploy to space, even upper atmosphere, there's going to be a lot of envy and jealousy going on. Everyone's going to be flocking to Space Force. I mean, if they want to increase their numbers, boom. You want a trip to the moon, or you want a trip to the upper atmosphere, join Space Force. Boop.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're talking smack now, but once that happens, they're gonna be like, "Dang, man!"
They're like, I missed the boat on that one.
Right. Yep. Well,
so,
tell us about your YouTube channel. How's that coming along?
Yeah, like I mentioned, not as
active.
Not as active as I wanted to be. I was, doing college while I could, when I was kind of in, in between training. And I was like, oh yeah, after training or after college, I'll do it. And then I started training for work. So it takes up a lot of time and energy of mine, but it's doing really well. Like I talk about the Space Force and any big changes, talk about like commissioning programs, in the Air Force, or any cool programs. Like I talked about like the Air Force astronaut program, which a lot of people don't know about. And then, I have a lot of ideas of what I want to talk about, but I'm hoping that when I start working my weird schedules, I'll become more productive on the weekends. And since I'll have it's like 5 days on, 3 days off, so I'll have like longer weekends. So maybe I can get better at talking more. But,
you know what you need? Are you a Mark Rober fan? Do you know who Mark Rober is?
It sounds familiar.
Okay, so Mark Rober is
apparently
a former
he knows who he is.
We've got Mark Rober swag. Get on the train. Mark Rober is a former NASA scientist, and he started his YouTube career doing experiments of like, hey, what would happen? He's best known, like his first videos were the Porch Pirate glitter bombs. Like he set up the glitter bombs for the Porch Pirates. And so he was a NASA engineer for like 5 years. And now he actually goes back to NASA and like helps explain people. They're like, hey, this is what I did. This is what I helped build for the rover that's in Mars right now. And so I think, well, obviously you need to start off with a glitter bomb, or we need to figure something off. Like we got to do something spectacular, right? Maybe, I know you do a lot of rollerblading, so I guess we could do some, like, you could be rollerblading and throwing, glitter bombs at people. You're like, these are like, and, but now, and then he's gone on and to engineer different things, like engineers his background. And, so maybe, you could blow things up with a laser or something. You're like, this is space. That's how we do it in space, right? I know you guys have those little bullets. Yeah.
Well, I think space is getting a lot of attention. I know my younger kids have all been over now with us landing that, what's that thing called on Mars? What's the name of that? I forgot.
One of the Mars rovers.
Yeah, Mars rovers. Yeah.
So one of their rovers, my kids love to go online and they update the videos and the pictures of it, and they're just fascinated by this. And then on the news, you know, Elon Musk and SpaceX is trying all this new stuff. It's just getting a lot of attention out there that these kids are just fascinated by, that it's not the old-fashioned type space travel, that it's really getting interesting. And being able to go to a different planet and look and seeing these 4K awesome pictures of the Mars landscape is fascinating to them. And they compare it to places here on Earth. They're like, oh, Dad, that looks like the desert where we go to. Kind of. But I think it's getting a lot of the younger generation excited. And I think as they keep going and we keep doing these explorations out there more and more for their generation, I think a lot of them are going to be leading towards the Space Force, and that they're going to want to get involved in this kind of a, you know, that, I hate to sound cliche, but that new frontier, you know, out there.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I am volunteering for a STEM graduation, or it's like a STEM something on Vandenberg, but they have like STEM outreach locations, and Vandenberg is one of the bases that has it. But it's pretty much where they have like about a dozen grade school kids come in, and I'm going to be like a guest speaker kind of talking about like the Space Force and stuff like that. But their primary focus is like STEM stuff. So they get like either speakers or education on just like STEM itself. So I think it's really blown up that career field. And yeah, more and more people are interested. Even on my social media, like I'll have like kids like saying like, oh, I'm 15 or I'm 17, like how can I be in the Space Force, or you know, are you going to be an astronaut, like stuff like that. And even like my best friends, they have like little, you know, 4 or 5-year-old kids, and they're like wanting astronaut suits and all kinds of these cool things. And I don't think it was as, you know, popular or as, you know how it is now. It was what, like 5 years ago.
Yeah. I think they're excited with anything that's new technology, you know, with these electric cars and self-driving stuff. I think we went through a few years of not a low in technology. I don't mean to say it like that, but like
a lull where it was
like it was just, there wasn't nothing really going on. NASA really wasn't doing anything, you know, like, yeah, we got some cell phones and stuff, but like, it seems like now things are starting to pick up, it feels like, and that technology is really moving a lot faster than it was, say, in the last 10 years or so. You know, I could be off on that, but that's what it feels like, you know.
And you can definitely thank like Elon Musk for that. Like the biggest thing is that like commercial industries are really getting into it. And unfortunately, NASA wasn't able to do things or much in like the last couple of decades just because of budgeting. Most of their budget goes to the International Space Station, because they don't have enough money. So because we're able to like have these commercial industries doing these things, it's a lot cheaper for NASA to pay them to, you know, do all the testing and, you know, contract them out for certain things. So definitely helps.
Real quick, we got to wrap up soon, Cynthia. We talked about you being a role model and you speaking at schools and your YouTube channel. Is how many women, like, and this is Women Empowerment Month too, like marches. Do you see a lot more? You talk about astronauts, and I just remember like most, you know, when you say astronaut, you think of almost a male-dominated industry, a male-dominated career force. Are you seeing a little tide turn in that? Like you talked about, you know, because you had more electrical, because your dad was a handyman, that you understood electrical a little bit more. We talk about, you know, you talk about, you know, math and science. Are you seeing more women in your field? Is that becoming more comfortable? Is that becoming more normal at all?
I would say I just looked up a survey, and it was saying, according to the Air Force, it's about 20% for officer and enlisted, is 20% is women. And I think that's a little bit of an increase in, I would say when I first joined, I think it was more towards like 15%. So I think overall, and then, you know, Space Force is direct from the Air Force. So overall it's around the same numbers. I'm not sure if I'm definitely at an increase. I don't know if it's like a very fast increase. But there's a lot more comfort in it. People joining.
Do you feel like Space Force, there's even like, I think part of what Adam was talking about with technology and whatnot, and I think even like the video game industry has proven that, in that video games are played by both males and females. Do you feel like Space Force is a little bit more open to gender neutral, I guess?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the military overall, especially Air Force and Space Force. They're definitely making more programs and making it more. They're making better programs for it to be more comfortable for women, and kind of like especially with children and like maternity, paternity leave and stuff like that. They're adjusting a lot to make it better for women.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on, Cynthia. That was some awesome information, and we really appreciate you and your service and what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's good seeing you. We'll have you on again for another update, and see some of your cool videos and hear some of the cool combat missions you're going on and your first ride to the space, and
I'll